Rob, what's going on? Why are you home? My voice trembled as I stared at my husband. Something about seeing him there in the middle of the day filled me with dread. I knew you'd be here, Ella. We've got a lot to discuss. Rob's eyes bore into mine with a mix of regret and defensiveness. The tension was palpable, almost suffocating. We were standing in our living room, a picture of suburban America with toys scattered around and a family photo hanging crookedly on the wall. Our son Jake's laughter floated in from the backyard, unaware of the storm brewing inside. He was everything to us, or so I thought. I took a deep breath, holding on to the fragment of our normal life I still had. What's going on, Rob? This doesn't look like a work emergency. Ella, sit down, please, he said, his tone mired in seriousness. He didn't sit, though. Instead, Rob paced around the room, a caged lion. I didn't move. Just tell me, I demanded, crossing my arms to keep from shaking. He stopped, avoiding my gaze. I don't know how to say this. Things have changed, Ella. Work's been rough and I've been under a lot of stress. It hit me. His late nights, his constant secrecy. You can't blame work for everything, Rob. You're never here. Jake is starting to notice. Rob's eyes finally met mine. It's more than that, he confessed. There's someone else. My heart stopped, then kicked back with a thud louder than ever. All the air left my lungs. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but all I could do was whisper, Who? Natalie. She's new at the office. Rob ran his fingers through his hair, messing it up. He looked disheveled, almost pitiful. And Jake? I forced the words out, thinking of how this would shatter our little boy. When were you planning on telling him? I don't know. His voice was low, almost pained. I haven't figured it out yet. Silence filled the room, thick and heavy, broken only by Jake's shout of joy outside as he chased a butterfly. For a fleeting moment, I wished I could be as blissfully ignorant as his innocence. You need to leave, I said finally, my voice firm despite my tears. Now. Rob looked at me, stunned. Ella, wait. We can work through this. No, we can't. The certainty in my voice surprised even me. You made your choice. Now, go. Without another word, Rob grabbed his keys from the table. He hesitated, looking like he wanted to say more, but I cut him off. Just go, Rob. As the door clicked shut behind him, I let myself sink to the floor. I could hear Jake's footsteps pattering toward the house, and I quickly wiped my tears. I had to stay strong for him. Mom, did you see the butterfly? Jake burst into the room, his cheeks flushed with excitement. His innocent joy was like a knife in my heart. I pulled him into a tight hug. I did, buddy. It was beautiful. I kissed the top of his head, holding on to him as if he were the only thing keeping me anchored to the earth. Later that night, as I tucked Jake into bed, he looked up at me with wide, curious eyes. Mom, where's Dad? Is he working late again? Tears threatened to spill over, but I forced a smile. Yes, sweetie, he's busy with work, but he loves you very much. Jake nodded, satisfied with the lie, and snuggled into his blankets. As I turned off the light and closed his door, I felt the weight of the truth pressing down on me. Our world had shifted, and nothing would ever be the same. The days after Rob left were a blur. I juggled work, taking care of Jake, and trying to hold myself together. Everyone at the office noticed I was more frazzled than usual, but they were polite enough not to pry. One evening, after another long day at the office, I picked Jake up from school. He was unusually quiet in the car. Everything okay, buddy? I asked. He hesitated, looking down at his shoes. Why is Dad never here? I took a deep breath, gripping the steering wheel tightly. Dad's been really busy with work lately. It felt like a weak excuse, even to my ears. Jake's eyes watered. But he promised he'd come to my game. He never did. Jake, I know it's hard. I sighed, trying to hold back my own tears. But your dad loves you. He's just dealing with a lot right now. Swallowing his disappointment, Jake nodded and stared out the window. The rest of the drive home was silent, filled only with the hum of the engine. That night, after Jake fell asleep, I sat at the kitchen table looking at the pictures of our once happy family. I needed to stay strong for Jake, even if it felt like I was breaking inside. Days turned into weeks, and Rob's absences grew longer and more frequent. He continued to come home late, often with flimsy excuses that barely held up to scrutiny. One night, I confronted him as he walked in, the smell of alcohol on his breath. Rob, this has to stop. Your son needs you here. Enough with the lectures, Ella. His voice was sharp, eyes blazing. I'm doing this for us. For Jake. Why can't you see that? By neglecting him? I shot back, my voice rising. He asks for you every day, Rob. It's breaking his heart. Rob looked away, guilt flashing across his face, but quickly replaced by defensiveness. I'm working my ass off, okay? trying to balance everything. Work shouldn't come before your family, I said, shaking my head. Your son needs you more than your job does. He shook his head, frustration evident. I can't do it all, Ella. You just don't get it. That was it. I could see he was not ready to change, not ready to put Jake first. Tension hung thick in the air as we stood there, two strangers sharing the same space, but miles apart emotionally. Eventually, without another word, Rob turned and left the room, retreating to the solitude of his office. I leaned against the kitchen counter, the weight of our crumbling marriage pressing down on me. Days passed, each blending into the next. In the evenings, I'd put Jake to bed, then sit by his door just listening to his steady breathing, reminding myself of why I needed to keep going. For him. Another week, another evening of radio silence from Rob. That was when it struck me. I couldn't wait around hoping he'd change. Jake needed me. And I was done giving Rob excuses. As I walked to my bedroom that night, I made a silent promise to myself. I would protect Jake, keep him safe from the chaos Rob was dragging into our lives. I would be the parent he could rely on. In the silence of my room, I planned how to shield Jake from Rob's absence. It wouldn't be easy, but I knew one thing for sure. I wouldn't let Rob's neglect tear our son apart any longer. The weeks went by and Rob's late nights became the norm. I barely saw him, and each night seemed lonelier than the last. It felt like he was slipping away and I was powerless to stop it. One evening, after putting Jake to bed, I heard the front door creak open. Rob stumbled in, looking more disheveled than ever. His suit was wrinkled, and he reeked of alcohol and a scent that wasn't home. "What time do you call this?" I asked, keeping my voice low to avoid waking Jake. "It's just work, Ella. I told you before." He avoided my eyes, heading straight for the kitchen. I followed him, my patience wearing thin. "Your son asked for you again tonight. He's beginning to think you don't care." Rob opened the fridge and grabbed a beer. "I am doing this for him. Why can't you understand? I'm trying to provide for us." "Provide?" I scoffed, anger bubbling up. "All Jake needs is for you to be here. Really here, not just your paycheck." He slammed the fridge door, finally looking at me. "It's not that simple. Work needs me. We need the money." "Is it really work, Rob?" I paused, searching his face for any shred of honesty. "Or is it something else?" Rob's eyes flickered momentarily, and his defensiveness hardened. "You're being paranoid. I'm out there busting my ass while you sit at home, nagging." "Nagging?" I echoed, stunned. "I'm raising our son, keeping this house together while you— What? Run off to God knows where." "That's enough," he snapped, his voice icy. "I won't stand here being accused. End of discussion." He pushed past me, heading to his office and slamming the door shut behind him. I stood there, feeling the weight of his words crushing me. It was like talking to a wall that didn't care about Jake or me anymore. The next few nights followed the same miserable pattern. Rob came home late, mumbled vague excuses, and retreated to his office. I felt the chasm between us widen with every passing day. Then, one evening, I saw him in the driveway, sitting in his car, talking animatedly on his phone. His face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in months. I knew then this wasn't just about work. I waited, heart pounding, until he finally came inside. "Who were you talking to?" I asked, striving for calm. Rob glanced at me, irritation flashing in his eyes. "A client, nothing you need to worry about." "A client?" I repeated. "You looked pretty happy for it to be just work." "God, Ella, can you just back off?" He threw his hands up in exasperation. "I can't deal with this right now." I couldn't hold it in any longer. "Are you sure it's work, Rob? Jake needs you here." Rob's face contorted with anger. "I'm doing my best, all right? Stop making this harder." With that, he stormed off again, slamming yet another door. I stood there, feeling helpless and more determined than ever. It wasn't just about us anymore. Jake needed stability, and I had to find a way to provide it, with or without Rob. I went to Jake's room and watched him sleep, his little face pressed into his pillow. I made a silent vow to protect him from the chaos Rob was sowing in our lives, no matter what it took. The next few days, I started noticing more signs. Rob's phone always seemed to buzz with messages, and he spent more time on it than ever before. His excuses became flimsier, leaving me with little doubt that there was more to his story than just overwork. I resolved that evening would be different. I would confront him fully, demand the truth, and if he still chose to hide behind his lies, I'd start making plans for Jake and me to find peace away from the turmoil. As I waited for him to come home, I knew the confrontation would likely blow our fragile world apart. But Jake was worth every bit of the fight. One morning, As I was rushing to pack Jake's lunch and get us both ready for the day, my phone buzzed. It was an email from my boss. Ella, I hope you're well. I wanted to discuss an exciting opportunity with you. Our New York branch needs someone to spearhead an important project next week. It would mean you'd have to be there for a few days. I believe you're the perfect fit for this. Let's talk details later today. Best, Susan. I stared at the screen, the word New York jumping out at me. It was a huge opportunity, one I couldn't afford to ignore, but how would I manage everything with Rob barely home? I couldn't leave Jake alone. That evening, as Rob walked in, again, much later than promised, I took a deep breath, bracing myself for the conversation. Rob, we need to talk, I said, intercepting him before he could retreat to his office. He sighed heavily. What now, Ella? I got an opportunity at work. They want me to go to New York for a few days next week to lead a project. He rubbed his temples. Ella? I don't know. Rob, I need you to be here with Jake. I cut him off. Can you manage that? Just for a few days. He stiffened, then, surprisingly, his expression softened. All right, he said, almost too quickly. I can do that. Jake and I will be fine. I eyed him suspiciously. Are you sure? It's really important that you're here for him. He needs you. Rob nodded, a hint of a smile crossing his face. Yes, I'll handle it. Maybe I'll take him camping. He's been asking to go on an adventure. Relief washed over me, mixed with a tinge of doubt. Okay, I'll trust you on this. The following days were a whirlwind of preparations. I meticulously planned everything, making sure Jake's needs were covered, and tried to suppress my lingering doubts about Rob's sudden enthusiasm. On the day I was leaving, I knelt beside Jake, who was busy trying to decide which toy to take camping. Mom, are you sure you'll be back soon? He asked, his eyes big and worried. I promise, buddy. Just a few days and I'll be home before you know it. I hugged him tightly, hoping my assurance was enough. Rob walked in, holding the camping gear, looking unusually chipper. Ready, Jake. We're gonna have a blast. Jake's face lit up. Really, Dad? Can we roast marshmallows? Of course, Rob replied, tussling Jake's hair. He looked at me, his eyes momentarily sincere. Ella, don't worry. We've got this. I hugged them both one last time and headed out, feeling a mixture of hope and anxiety. New York was as chaotic and demanding as I expected. Yes, but I threw myself into my work, trying to distract myself from the gnawing worry about home. Late one evening, after a day full of meetings, I checked my phone and found a missed call from Jake. My heart skipped a beat as I called back immediately. Jake? Everything okay? Jake's small voice was barely audible. Hi, Mom. I miss you. I miss you too, sweetie. Are you having fun with Dad? There was a pause. Dad said he had to do some work stuff. We didn't go camping. I felt anger rising, but I kept my tone calm. It's okay, Jake. I'll be home soon. As I hung up, I knew I needed to get home as quickly as possible. Rob had promised, and once again he'd let us down. I wrapped up my work and booked the earliest flight back. Arriving home a day earlier than planned, I found Jake with a neighbor. He ran to me, tears streaming down his face. Mom, Dad left. He said he'd be back, but he never came. Holding Jake close, my anger at Rob solidified into resolve. He would have to face the consequences of his actions. This wasn't just about me or the betrayal. It was about protecting Jake from any more pain. Rob arrived home, looking shocked to see me. Ella, what are you doing back? I set Jake down gently and faced Rob, determination in my eyes. We need to talk, now. I walked past Rob, my face set in stone. He followed me into the living room, confusion etched on his face. Ella, what's going on? Why are you back early? You promised Jake you'd take him camping, I said, my voice cold. Instead, you left him alone. He stammered, trying to find words. I had a work emergency. I didn't have a choice. Always an excuse, I snapped. You made a promise to your son. Do you even care about him? Of course I do. He looked wounded. But you don't understand the pressure I'm under. I glared at him, fury bubbling up. No, Rob, you don't understand. You've been neglecting your family for what? Another woman? Rob's eyes widened in shock, guilt flashing across his face. Ella, it's not like that. Don't lie to me, I interrupted, my voice trembling with anger. I know what's going on. It's not just work, it's Natalie, isn't it? He fell silent, guilt solidifying into defeat. Yes, it's Natalie, but it doesn't mean I don't care about Jake. You have to believe me. How can I believe anything you say? I felt tears stinging my eyes. You've shattered our family. Jake deserves better than this. I'm trying to fix it, Ella. His voice was desperate. Can't we work something out? For Jake's sake? I shook my head, my resolve hardening. No, this is beyond fixing, Rob. Jake and I are leaving. Rob's face crumpled. Please, Ella, don't do this. Let's talk it through. There's nothing left to talk about. I walked to the hallway and started gathering our things. You've made your choices. Now I'm making mine. Jake watched quietly as I packed, his eyes filled with confusion. Mom, are we going somewhere? Yes, sweetheart, I said, trying to sound calm. We're going to stay with Aunt Caroline for a while. Rob watched us, looking lost and defeated. Ella, please, think about this. I have thought about it. I looked him straight in the eyes. Jake deserves better, and so do I. We walked out the door, Jake holding my hand tightly. As we drove to Caroline's, my mind raced with plans for our new beginning. The betrayal cut deep, but my focus was on Jake. He needed me to be strong. Caroline welcomed us with open arms. You're always welcome here, she said, hugging us both. That night, as I tucked Jake into bed, he looked up at me with his big worried eyes. Mom, will Dad come too? I brushed his hair gently. No, Jake, it's just you and me for now, but we're going to be okay. He nodded, trusting my words. I love you, Mom. I love you too, buddy, I whispered, kissing his forehead. More than anything. After he fell asleep, I sat in the living room talking with Caroline. I can't believe it's come to this, I said, my voice breaking. Caroline took my hand. You're doing what's best for Jake, and for you. Rob's made his bed. Now he has to lie in it. I nodded, feeling the weight of the truth. I'm done trying to fix things that aren't worth fixing. The next day, I called Rob, my voice firm. We need to meet and discuss everything. We're done, Rob. Jake and I don't need you. Rob sounded devastated, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. He had broken our trust, and there was no going back. In the days that followed, news of Rob's affair spread at his workplace, bringing professional disgrace. Natalie's involvement and their affair became public knowledge, leading to Rob's resignation. He had lost everything, his family, his job, the respect of his peers. Watching Rob's world crumble should have brought satisfaction. Instead, I felt a deep sense of sadness for what our family had lost. But amidst the ashes, there was hope for rebuilding, one step at a time, starting from the love and trust Jake and I still shared. The weeks at Caroline's house were a whirlwind of changes. I never thought I'd find myself starting over, but here I piecing together a new life for Jake and me. Caroline and Mark were incredibly supportive, and having family close made the transition a bit easier. One Saturday morning while I was sipping my coffee, I received a text from Rob. We need to talk. I rolled my eyes and showed the message to Caroline. He still thinks we can fix this? Caroline raised an eyebrow. He's delusional if he thinks you're going back. I sighed, typing back a quick response. Meet me at the park in an hour. When I arrived at the park, Rob was already there, sitting on a bench, more defeated than I had ever seen him. I took a deep breath and walked over, ready for whatever he had to say. Ella, thanks for meeting me, he started, his voice shaky. You have 10 minutes, Rob. Make it count, I replied, arms crossed. Look, I know I messed up, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix things. For Jake. I shook my head. It's not that simple. You broke our trust, and trust is everything. Jake needs stability, and you've proven time and again that you can't provide that. So what, you're just going to take him away from me? He looked desperate, his eyes pleading. I'm not taking him away. You did that yourself when you chose Natalie over your family. My voice was firm, leaving no room for negotiation. Rob's face crumpled. Please, Ella, don't do this. I'm lost without you both. I stood my ground. We're done, Rob. Jake and I are moving on. You can have visitation rights, but that's it. You can't be serious, he said, his voice edged with panic. I am serious, I replied. You've left me no choice. I turned to leave, but he grabbed my arm, desperation turning to anger. You can't just walk away. I pulled free, glaring at him. Watch me. Back at Caroline's, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. It shouldn't have come to this, but it had. I had to protect Jake. A week later, one of my coworkers approached me with a look I didn't quite understand. Hey, Ella, do you have a minute? Sure, what's up? I asked, curious. It's about Rob. Have you heard what's going on at his work? A knot formed in my stomach. No, what? He's resigned. There's been some talk about an affair and some shady dealings. I blinked, pieces clicking into place. Rob's life was unraveling, and it wasn't just because of the affair. There was more to this. That evening, I decided to drive by Rob's office. As I sat in the parking lot, my phone rang. It was Natalie. Ella, I think we need to talk, she said, her voice filled with regret, and something else I couldn't quite place. Meet me at the coffee shop on Main in half an hour, I replied, curiosity piqued. At the coffee shop, Natalie looked different, tired and remorseful. She sat across from me, hands trembling. Ella, I need to apologize. I had no idea Rob was married when we started seeing each other. And now I realize he's been using me too. I listened, letting her explain. I found out he's been involved in some shady business deals. I have proof, emails, documents, everything. She slid a folder across the table. Why are you giving this to me? I asked, eyes narrowing. Because he lied to both of us, and I want justice as much as you do, Natalie said, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. I nodded, accepting the folder. I'll look into this. Thank you. With the new evidence in hand, I knew what I had to do. Rob had dug his own grave, and now, with Natalie's help, I had the tools to make sure he faced the consequences of his actions. As I drove back to Caroline's, I felt a sense of resolution. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about setting things right for me and Jake. Our new beginning would be free from Rob's lies and betrayal, and that was the most important thing. Days after my meeting with Natalie, the evidence she gave me weighed heavy in my bag. It was time to act. I couldn't let Rob's deceit go unpunished, especially when Jake's future was at stake. I called a friend of mine, Lisa, who worked in Rob's industry but had no direct ties to his company. We met at a small diner, our regular spot from college days. So what's this about, Ella? Lisa asked, sipping her coffee. I pulled out the folder. I need your help. Rob's been involved in some shady business deals. I have proof, but I need to know how to expose him without getting caught in the crossfire. Lisa raised her eyebrows. Whoa, that's serious stuff. Let me see. She flipped through the documents, her face growing more serious with each page. Ella, this could ruin him. Are you sure you want to go through with this? I nodded. He betrayed our family. I can't let him get away with it. She let out a heavy sigh. All right, here's what we'll do. I'll leak these documents to a journalist I trust. They'll investigate and publish the story. This way, your name stays out of it. Thank you, Lisa. I owe you. Just looking out for you like old times, she said with a reassuring smile. As I left the diner, a sense of resolve washed over me. Rob couldn't escape the consequences this time. A few days later, the article hit the news. The headline read, Top Execs Fall from Grace. Affairs and Fraud Exposed. It detailed Rob's unethical behavior, both in his personal life and at work. The fallout was immediate. His company issued a statement denouncing his actions, and Rob was publicly shamed. The phone rang nonstop that day. Friends and colleagues called, shocked by the revelations. I ignored most calls, focusing on comforting Jake through the chaos. He was confused, but I tried to keep things simple for him. Mom, why is everyone talking about Dad? He asked, looking up at me with innocent eyes. I knelt down beside him. Sometimes people make bad choices, Jake. Your dad made some mistakes, and now people are upset. Is he in trouble? Yes, but it's not your fault, okay? You did nothing wrong. I hugged him tightly, offering all the reassurance I could muster. That evening, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Rob, looking disheveled and lost. Ella, please, I need to talk to you, he pleaded. Not here, I said, stepping outside to avoid disturbing Jake. Everything's falling apart. My career, my reputation, it's all gone. He ran his hands through his hair, his voice breaking. That's what happens when you lie and cheat, Rob, I replied coldly. You brought this on yourself. You have to help me, he begged, desperation seeping from every pore. I don't owe you anything, I said firmly. All I care about is Jake. You can have visitation rights, but that's it. We are not helping you fix this mess. Rob's shoulders slumped, defeated. I've lost everything, Ella. And whose fault is that? I asked, turning to leave. You need to learn to live with the consequences of your actions. Goodbye, Rob. I walked back inside, feeling a strange sense of closure. Rob's downfall was complete, and there was no going back. The next day, I ran into Natalie at the grocery store. She looked better, more resolute than before. Natalie, I greeted her, surprised. Ella, I saw the article. Looks like he finally got what he deserved, she said, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. Thanks to you, I acknowledged. We both did what we had to do. We did. And thanks to this, people like Rob won't get away with damaging lives anymore. I nodded, knowing she was right. Our actions had consequences, and for once, justice had been served. As I watched Natalie walk away, I felt lighter. The revenge wasn't sweet, but it was necessary. Rob's life had unraveled publicly, and now Jake and I could move forward, free from his lies. It was a small victory, but it was ours. Moving out of Caroline's house was both terrifying and exhilarating. I found a cozy apartment close by, ensuring Jake wouldn't have to change schools. It was a fresh start, a place to rebuild and find peace. The first night there, as Jake unpacked his toys, he looked up at me. Mom, do you think Dad's okay? My heart ached for him. I think he'll be okay, buddy, but right now we need to focus on us. Jake nodded, seemingly satisfied with my answer. I like it here. It feels like an adventure. Smiling, I ruffled his hair. It is an adventure, and we're in it together. The next few weeks were filled with settling in, unpacking boxes, buying new furniture, and getting used to our surroundings. It was a lot, but every step felt like progress. One sunny afternoon, Caroline dropped by with her kids. They ran off to play with Jake, while Caroline and I chatted over coffee. "How's he holding up?" Caroline asked, nodding towards Jake's room. "Better than I expected," I admitted. "Kids are resilient. I'm more worried about how he'll handle seeing Rob again." Caroline sighed. "It won't be easy, but you're doing great. And remember, you've got us. You're not alone." I squeezed her hand, grateful for her unwavering support. "Thanks, Caroline. I don't know what I'd do without you." Jake's first day at his new school was nerve-wracking. I walked him to his classroom, trying to mask my own anxiety. As we reached the door, he stopped and looked up at me. "Will you be here when I'm done?" he asked, his eyes wide with worry. "Of course, Jake. I'll be right here. Promise." He nodded, taking a deep breath. "Okay then. See you later, Mom." Watching him walk into the classroom, I felt a swell of pride. He was brave, braver than I ever gave him credit for. Later that day, while I was working from our home office, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mark. "Hey, Ella. Heard about a meetup group for single parents. Might be good for you to check out. They meet tomorrow evening at the community center." It wasn't something I'd normally consider, but maybe it was time to put myself out there again. Not for romance, but for support. I needed people who understood the struggles I was facing. The next evening, I found myself sitting in a circle of strangers at the community center. As the meeting began, people shared their stories, their challenges, and triumphs. It was comforting to hear others who were in similar situations. When it was my turn, I hesitated but then took a deep breath and spoke. "Hi, I'm Ella. My son and I just moved into a new place after a tough split. It's been hard, but we're making it through." A woman across the circle smiled warmly. "Welcome, Ella. We're here for you." After the meeting, a few people approached me, offering support and exchanging contact information. It felt good to connect and know I wasn't alone. One person in particular stood out. His name was Dan, a kind-eyed man who had lost his wife a few years back. As we chatted, I found myself opening up more than I expected. "Thanks for sharing your story, Dan," I said, feeling a genuine connection. "It's inspiring to see how you've come through everything." He smiled gently. "Same to you, Ella. It's not easy, but with the right people around, it gets better." That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on the journey Jake and I had been on. It had been tough, but we were stronger for it. Little by little, life was becoming brighter. The next days flowed into a new rhythm, one that felt hopeful. Jake settled into his new school. I reconnected with old friends and even began to look forward to the meetup group. It wasn't about finding a new relationship, but surrounding ourselves with good people. Life went on, and we were part of it, moving forward with strength and resilience. One evening, as Jake and I cuddled on the couch watching a movie, he looked up at me with his bright eyes. "Mom, I like our new adventure." I hugged him tightly. "Me too, Jake. Me too." Our fresh start was just that, the beginning of a new chapter, filled with hope, growth, and the promise of better days. And for the first time in a long while, I felt genuinely optimistic about our future.